So I have a terrible setup right now with horrible lighting, but it's because I'm packing up to move out of state. Um, but I wanted to talk about my book, which I just published, self-published through Amazon. Um, Consciousness is Coherence. You can order a hard copy, for $3.69 off of Amazon. Uh, if you want. I made it as cheap as possible, but you can read it for free on my website, exoteric.org. So yeah, let me just talk about this real quick. Um, as you can see on the cover, there's electromagnetic geometry, the geometry from Steinmetz's work. Um, Basically, I was trying to think of a title. One title name I thought of was Consciousness is kind of like magnetic coherence. And I think it is kind of like magnetic coherence if my ontological position is correct, which is monism. And in monism, one is likely to view things like consciousness or magnetism as non-physical characteristics inherent in every base particle. Panpsychism, basically. Consciousness might be one of these characteristics. If so, I believe it's similar to magnetism. So that's basically, that's the gist of it. So I basically go into the reasons why I think that's the mechanism of panpsychism is the same as the mechanism of magnets. And then I go into, well, basically what magnetism might be. It's not enough to just say that consciousness is like magnetism if no one knows really what magnetism is. And there's this cool guy named Ken Wheeler who authored the book Uncovering the Missing Secrets of Magnetism. And he's shed a lot of light on what magnetism is. And the reason that I like him specifically is because he is knowledgeable about ontology. And it seems to be that those who are knowledgeable about ontology tend to lean in the monist direction. Now, he hasn't really gone that far beyond magnetism per se, but I just noticed a connection between consciousness science, which right now tends to lean more towards monism, meaning panpsychism. Now, panpsychism has the combination problem, and I believe that this coherence, this magnetic form of coherence, is the answer to the combination problem. Combination being a synonym of coherence. But yeah, it's not enough to just say it's coherence, because you're just using another word, coherence. So I go in a little bit about what I think magnetism might be. Now, I want to really quickly summarize some of the things. First of all, this geometry, this magnetic geometry with the two poles, the rings around the poles I would call parallels, and the lines connecting the poles I would call meridians, as in the lines on a globe map. And the reason I'm using that language is because this geometry is a product of a kind of projection, and projection is a way to translate geometry from 3 dimensions to 2 dimensions. So if you want to make a map of the globe, then you use projection. You use a kind of projection to project the 3-dimensional globe onto a 2-dimensional plane. This geometry is a product of projection. Specifically a sphere, and specifically a projection called stereographic projection. Now, something that is not pointed out by a lot of people is that logarithmic spirals are also a product of stereographic projection, meaning the golden ratio, the golden mean, these are patterns in nature. This is geometry in nature that I believe is a product of stereographic projection. Well, what does that mean? I'm not exactly sure, but because of my ontological basis, I think that geometry is the most important thing, and really probably the only kind of information to know, or that can be known. The non-physical is different from the physical. If one were to define the non-physical, it's likely that they would define it as coherence. Fractal, self-similar, extending into infinity, which is a product of stereographic projection. They say that about fields already. They extend into infinity, but the thing about fields in the postmodern era of science is that the postmodern era of science everything's explained with fields, but when you go to ask what fields are made of, what fields actually are, they say it's a construct. It's a construct. They're little vectors on a piece of paper. Both physicalism and idealism do this. Idealism meaning relativism, the two arms of postmodern science. It's a construct. And so basically if you ask them what's pulling you down towards the earth, they say, oh, it's a construct. I don't think that little vectors on a piece of paper are pulling me down towards earth. I don't think they're little angel hands. I think that there's an objective thing in nature which we call gravity. And I'm not sure if there are gravitons, but if you're spending trillions of dollars creating particle generators, looking for gravitons, and you're not even acknowledging alternate ontological perspectives, that's a major problem. So, my book, which is about 100 pages, it's very concise. I don't really take a lot of time explaining concepts. And also, I hope you don't mind the attitude that I have. I do kind of have an attitude with this book. Usually I'm a nice guy. Usually I'm really nice and neutral on topics, but I think it's good to have a position and back up that position with arguments. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm trying to solve some problems in science. I'm trying to solve consciousness. And I hope that you do too. I hope that you have a sincere desire. And I want you to read this book and have a discussion with me about it. So, thanks. Bye-bye.